One of the core principle of DevOps is now you know that DevOps is all about how quickly you can go to the market. Developers keep on working on different stuff, and as they are working on new thing, you want these things to be moved into the production as much as possible so that the new feature would become available to the market. That is what add value to your business, of course. So So this plain text code which developers are writing are generally not in a usable form. Right? They are generally uh, they are plain text files which the machines cannot understand. Right? Your the machines, your Apache service or whatever machine that you are using in the production, the machine will not be able to understand the plain text source code which your developers are writing. So first, this code need to be converted into an executable form. Maybe you need to do some compilation and you need to do some building. Maybe you need to fix all the dependency problems and make sure that you have everything in a coordinated place and it is built into a executable form. It is the built code or the executable code that you can directly execute. The examples are the exe files in Windows. They are directly executable code. If you execute a exe file, it will do something, right? Or in case of Java, it is jar or var files or ER files. They are directly executable files. So it is important that the plain text code your developer is writing need to be converted into a executable form. And people prefer the code to be saved in the executable form always. The reason is if you have the executable in place at any point of time, you can deploy this executable into your different environment testing, development, or production environment. So in our case, we are talking about yeah, uh, okay. So we are focusing on a Java application today. We will take a Java sample application, and once the developer had written this code, they need to write some class, right? Then they need for the web page they need to have some style sheets and some JSP files that they need to write. And whenever you want to write some class, you would be using some functionalities which are not available in the inbuilt Java. You need to download some libraries from outside, or sometimes you have to create your own libraries to execute this Java program. So you need to get those libraries. Right? There are a series of steps that you need to follow before your Java code would actually become usable. That would include you need to compile the classes into a machine understandable form. Then you need to combine these compiled classes with the dependency libraries and also other JSP files that display your web page and some config files. Putting them together, you would build a, a archive file, a executable archive. It's for web application, it is called web application archive or war files in Java, which is actually nothing but a combination of the dependency libraries, then the plain text Java classes that the developers are writing, and the JSP files that would be nothing but the web page of your website, right? Combining all these things, you would create a directly executable file. So your Tomcat server, the Tomcat Java application server, would actually deploy this war file in order to serve your usage with the Java application that you have developed. These are the process actually you need to take care before you could actually use a Java application. You cannot simply write the code and run it. So that is what we are going to discuss today. How you can use Apache Ant to convert a plain text source code into a executable file, a web application archive, which can be directly deployed by Tomcat. Okay, so let us start. Ant is a software by Apache. Apache is a organization. I don't know whether you heard about them. Actually, Apache is the name of the web server. That is also a product owned by Apache Foundation. That is the company name. Apache Foundation. They are one of the leading open source softwares vendor, right? The Tomcat, Apache, and Maven, Zuki. They have a lots of products which are widely popular and are open source. So Ant is also a software by Apache Foundation. That's why sometimes it's called Apache Ant, or sometimes it is simply called Ant. So let us take a look. Okay. So Ant itself is a Java framework, right? And itself is a Java framework, and you know the steps that you need to follow in order to install a Java framework. First, you have to install Java, the JDK. What you need to do, download the JDK, export into your path environmental variable. Then you can download Apache, and you can export that also into your path environmental variable. So that's what we used to follow, right? Whenever we install Tomcat, Tomcat itself is a Java framework. So what we did, we downloaded Tomcat, then we downloaded JDK, Java Development Kit. Both of them we downloaded, and the binary folders we included into the path environmental variable. So the same steps you need to follow for Apache, and also that is also a Java framework. So let us go ahead and download. First, I will download JDK and install it in my EC2 machine. I will create a EC2 machine first. So I have one machine which I will, maybe I'll create a new machine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to download Java JDK, JDK 8, accept license agreement. Linux 64-bit is what I want. So it would start downloading. It's in my Mac. I am downloading. I'm going to copy the link address. Then using the wget command, I will download that to my machine. So first I moved into user local folder. That is where I want to download the JDK uh, archive. It doesn't really matter where I am downloading. Yeah. Okay, the file got downloaded. Now I am going to rename the file to a better name. Then extract it. And in the meantime, I will go ahead and download Apache Ant. Search in Google, download Apache Ant. You would be taken to the downloads page. Right click and copy the link address, tar.gz file over here, and download it to your machine, EC2 machine. Extract it. Okay, so now you have downloaded the folder is Apache. Now you have extracted the Apache Ant folder and also JDK folder. Now I am exporting the path. Export path is equal to the current path, then user local JDK bin, then user local JDK slash JRE slash bin. Then I want to put the Apache Ant also slash user local Apache Ant slash bin. So these are the folders which I want to include in my path environmental variable. Okay. So copy this command into your bash rc file. So go to your .bash rc file, come down over here, you can paste this path. So that's it. Now run the command and it looks to be working. So it is giving you some error saying that build XML file does not exist, which is actually a legitimate error, but and is working and seems to be working fine. So the essential part of Ant is a build XML file. A build XML file is has the format of XML. Do you know XML? It is more like a uh, semi-structured language, which I will show you. This is how the syntax would look like, right? It start with something like this. It start like this. Then you put a block. It start a project block start here and it end here. And in between project you can put multiple items. In this case there is one item called target, and the name of the target is info. So this is the XML format. It is a semi-structured language. And uses XML format in order to define the task that you want Ant to execute. So what all tasks that you want your Ant to execute for your Java project? Assume you have a Java project and there are multiple things. You have the Java classes written by the developers. These classes need to be compiled into a compiled form. And once the classes are in compiled form, you need to, there would be some dependencies. Your developers would have written some Java classes. Inside the Java classes, they had written some command, right? Some command that is not available by default, but it is available in some third-party libraries. So in that case, those dependencies need to be resolved. So you need that third-party libraries also downloaded inside your application. Then only it is going to work. So your Java classes would need a number of library files. So these libraries also you want to combine, and also some JSP files, which is nothing but the Java web pages. When you browse the website, you see a Java application on your web page, those pages are coming as a JSP files. So there would be number of JSP files. So combining all these things, the compile classes, the libraries, and the JSP files, combining together, you want to create a archive, a executable archive. It's, or you can call it WAR, web application archive. And it is this WAR file, which is a executable file, which Tomcat will deploy in order to serve the Java application to people. So that is what we are going to do. We will write a program inside Ant. Then inside this XML file, we will define our task that you want to do. Compile the classes, build into the WAR file, then create this folder or delete this folder. So whatever task that you want to take, you would define the task inside an XML file. Then you run the ant command, then automatically all the build job will happen at one shot. The developer does not have to compile the classes first and then coordinate all the libraries and then do it. Instead of that, you can simply, developers can simply write the code, then they can simply run the command and the compilation and building will happen in the background automatically. So that is what Ant is being used for. It would make the job of developers very easy. Developer can simply focus on their coding part. The build job is something Ant will automate, and you can automate it further when we learn Jenkins, but that is our next topic. Today we are going to focus only on Ant. So this is the task that you want to do. So you don't really need to know the Java programming and all. Actually, what we are going to do is we will take a sample project from internet, we will download it, and inside that project we will uh, do this compilation and building. That we will see how to do that. So before that, let us go through some basics of Ant. So this is how the Ant will look like. There will be a project which is nothing but the project that you're defining here, whatever job that you want to do, there would be multiple jobs sometimes that you want to do. So it all comes under a single project. The XML file of and the build.xml file should contain one project. You can define some name. So this is how you define the project. It start here, it end here, and inside the project you can define the task, or in Ant they are called targets. You can define targets, which is nothing but what you want your Ant to do is what you define here as a task or target. So there can be multiple target inside each project. So that again we will see. So for now, let's take this sample project. So this is a project. It's, the name is hello world project. The default target you define, basically I will tell you what it is, and you must also define a base directory for your project. In my case, assuming that the Java source code is located inside slash root, or right, you can define a base directory which will point to, generally it would point to your project folder. In my case, I don't have any project folder. Still, I simply want to put some value there. So then the target would start. In this case, there was only one target. It start here and it end here. The name of the target is info. What does the info target does? Echo. It simply echo whatever message you given to it. Hello world, welcome to Apache Ant. So this message would be printed when I execute my Ant command. So actually default equal to info means set info as the default target. That's what it means. There's one target called info. So you want this target to be called each time and get executed. In that case, you can mention that. So in this case, there's only one actually. But if there are multiple cases and you want to make one of these targets to be default, you can mention that target name over here. Default is equal to the target name. Then automatically, when you execute the Ant command, only that particular target would be executed. So let us go ahead and create our first build XML file. I'm going to create the build XML file. I'll just copy paste this entire code from here. Okay, so let us save this, and I'm going to simply, I can either simply execute ant command, or I can type ant space the target name, ant space info I can put. But in this case, even if I simply run ant command, this target will get executed because I set that as the default target. Info is the default target. So even if I simply run the command and, it will execute the same target, or I can type ant space, or I can type and space info, that's also fine. So in this case, I'm simply typing and, then it took this info target, which in fact printed this message, hello world, welcome to Apache Ant. So this is how it works. Okay, and yeah, sometimes you can define some properties within and, actually, uh, for an example, we are not the steps of building it that we will do. So think about this: your developers are writing some code, some Java code, and they need to mention the database name, database username, database password, everything inside the code. Of course, you have an application and it want to connect to a database, then you need to mention the database credentials inside the application, maybe inside some configuration file. So like that, there can be a number of configuration that you want to mention inside your application, right? In WordPress also, in the wp config.php, you have to write down the database credential to which WordPress will connect to. In the same way, whatever application, whether it is Java or whatever application it's there in 99.9% of the cases, it need to connect with a database to store the data. So you need to mention the database credentials and everything. Sometimes you want to mention the image locations where you want the images to be saved. So there can be a lot of configuration that you want to mention. So before building, when the developers write the source code, they will not write the database name inside the source code. Just think about that. They will not write the database name or the configuration inside the database. Instead of that, all they do is mention some key name. That's it. Then when Ant build this project, Ant will automatically replace the keys with actual values. That's something you can do. So you can actually define some attributes inside Ant, something like database name is equal to this, database user is equal to this. Like that, you can define some attribute. Then when you want to perform some operation, let's say you want to compile the code, so first step before the compilation, what you want to do is replace the db name with the actual database name, or replace the username with the actual username. So that is also something Ant can do. You can do some replacement of the a given pattern with a new pattern. So sometimes you want to mention some configuration inside Ant, like database name is equal to this, database user is equal to this, and where you can even mention that the actual database name should be put during the time of compilation. So we will come to a better example later. So properties are nothing but you are defining some key value pairs. Site name is equal to this, or database name is equal to this, database username is equal to this. Like that, you can define number of attributes. Then you can use those attributes inside your targets. In this particular example, I am defining a attribute called a property called site name, which points to the value www.tutorialpoint.com. Then in the target field, I am going to put this Apache Ant version is equal to. Then I am putting some variable name here. You are at site name. Site name is nothing but www.tutorialpoint.com. So let us take a look at this. I'm going to create my build.xml file. Yeah. So ant version is a default variable in ant, which actually points to the actual ant version. So there are a number of default variables in ant. So you can search in Google properties in ant. You can see the list of properties here. Yeah, these are the default properties, and right, these are the different properties that you can have: the URL, environment, class path, base directory. These are the different attributes that you can have in ant. So over here there is something called ant version, which is a property inbuilt property in ant, which points to the actual ant version. I'm going to save this. I'm going to execute the ant command. This time it printed you Apache Ant version is this one. You are at, then the actual site name is printed here. So like this you can define the key value pairs. They are nothing but like key value pairs. You can define properties in ant. Then you can use those properties inside your targets. Okay. So that's pretty much. And sometimes if you have many attributes, that is the case in general, you may have many properties that you want to define. In that case, what you can really do is you can create a separate file and define all properties inside that file. Then inside the build XML file, you can simply include that other file where you defined all these properties. That is also fine. So in this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file called build.properties. Right, simply I'm just creating this file in order to define the properties. For example, db name is equal to, say, wpdb, or I can put something like this: db user equal to wp user, db password is equal to my password. So something like that. I can define image location is equal to /var www html. So like this I can define a number of key value pairs over here, save this file, and now this build properties contains a number of properties that you have defined. Then in the build.xml file, what you are going to do is you are going to include this particular file build properties inside the build xml file, which will in fact include the build.properties file into your build xml file. So whatever attribute that you had defined inside build.properties would come here. So site name, or maybe instead of site name I want to put something like, let's say, db name. Right, db name is a property that I had defined inside ant. So now I am going to execute this command, and you can see you are at wpdb. So wpdb is actually an attribute, which is a property which is actually defined inside this file build.properties. And since you already included build.properties, that value was taken and it is printed by ant. And these are some data types in ant, which we will take a quick look. So generally, what does ant deal with? And sometime want to do some compilation of the classes, then it want to get the list of binary files and list of library files, then it want to combine the libraries with the classes, so like that. So basically ant deals a lot with files. It could be libraries, it could be the class files written by developers, or it could be the compiled classes, whatever it is. Generally and deal with a lot of files. Generally they are set of files actually. For example, all the Java classes, or all the dependent libraries, or all the executable that you are going to use. So generally you can classify this set of files based on their property, or right, how and want to use it. For example, and want to compile all the classes first and want to get a list of all the classes, or and want to uh, build the classes with libraries, then and want to get the list of all the libraries. So there are few data types in and which generally indicate a set of files. So these are the different data types in and the first one is a file set. File set is nothing but a list of files inside a given folder. So this is a definition of a file set. You are mentioning the folder name. Of course you are specifying as an argument. If you want, you can specify the exact location also here. So assuming in this particular case, you are assuming that src is one property which is already defined into your build.properties files. That's mandatory, of course. So basically what is file set? File set is nothing but a set of files inside this folder, and in this particular case all the files that end with .java, and exclude all the file that contains the keyword stub in it. I repeat, this particular file set definition would is nothing but a set of files, of course. That's what a file set is. It is nothing but a set of files. And you are defining the regular expressions patterns in order to classify your files. So within this folder, any file that end with .java, include those files. And within these files, if there are any file that name contains stub, remove them. So except the stub ones, whatever files that end with .java, combine them together and call it a file set. That's what this means. So file set is nothing but it is a list of file. So double star would indicate do a recursive search. So inside this src folder, do a recursive search and search in the folder, subfolder, and everything. Any file that end with Java, include it. That's what it means. Pattern set. This is how you can define a pattern set with an ID. Java files without stubs. And you can include basically through a pattern set, what you do is you are defining the expression here, so that in the file set you can simply mention the pattern set ID. So what you are going to do here, you are defining some search here. Within src folder, any file that end with .java, exclude any file that contains stub. So that is nothing but you want to do such a search. And when you define the file set, instead of specifying the actual search pattern inside the file set, you can simply mention the pattern set ID. That's better, right? So here you define Java files without step as a pattern set. Then you would include this inside your file set. So basically, like this, you can create multiple patterns. Java files without stub. Then another pattern called all Java classes, all dependent libraries, all binaries. So like that, you can have different pattern set that you can define. And then you can simply include those pattern set when you define your file set. That's what you can do. File list is nothing but the list of files. You specify it one by one. That's what a file set is. You don't put any expression. Whichever file which you want to include, just list them down one by one, then create a file list. Filter set, yeah, I told you, right? Sometimes think about this, your Java developer had written the source code, but they did not mention the database name inside the source code. Instead, what they did is they put wherever they need to enter the database name, they replace that with DB name. And at the time of building, you want to decide which to which database your application want to connect to. What you can do is you can configure your Ant to replace the DB name with the actual database name that you want. This is how you do it. Let's say there is some copy operation that you can perform. The copy start here, copy end here. What you are going to copy, this particular file set is what you want to copy. So within this particular folder, any file that end with .txt would be included in this file set. So you want to do copy all these files which is inside this file set, that is nothing but inside this folder any file that end with .txt you want to copy. Where you want to copy to this particular folder. And at the same time you are applying some filter sets like this. If there are any file that contains DB name, replace that with database name, and database is again something, some property that you define inside your build.properties file. So you have the flexibility. You want your application to connect with a different database, go ahead and change the build.properties file and change the database name. That's it. So this way it would become more easy to make the configuration changes on the application that run that uses and to build. And a path, you know what a path is, right? What is a path? Generally in Linux, what is a path? It is nothing but the set of binaries. In Linux it is nothing but a set of folder where you created these binaries. Same way, the path in Java is nothing but a list of jar executables in Java. Generally, these are nothing but some dependent libraries. This is how we can define a path, give it some ID. Then you define a file set like this. Within this folder, any file that end with .jar would be included in the path. So that's pretty much about the different data types in Ant, which I wanted to discuss. So now we will just take a example. We will take a sample Java project and we will see how you can build that into a WAR, web application archive. So we will see that after a short break. Take a short break of 5 minutes and we will continue in 5 minutes. So, so what we are going to do now is we will take a sample Java project. We will download that from internet because we don't have one of our own. It doesn't really matter actually. You are not the one who is going to run these Java programs or Java classes or uh, setting up the libraries. Generally, this is not done by you. It is done by the developers, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to take such a Java source code, a complete web application written in Java. It's a very sample one, very basic one, and we will run our Ant inside that project. So I'm going to download this from this link. This is the link that I got when I browsed for sample Java applications. So this is the project. copy the link address, and I am going to download this to my machine using wget command. It's a zip file. I need to unzip it. Before that, I need to install unzip, of course. So install unzip, then unzip this file that you downloaded, the project. Unzip, then the file name. So which will basically extract the Java project into the folder and example1. So go inside that folder and example1. Type ls, you can actually see the list of content here. This is the Java project, and you would see there is a folder called src. It is inside the src folder the Java classes are located. Right? Java is a object-oriented programming language that does contains a number of classes written by your developers. So if you go inside src folder, you would see a number of subfolders inside com, inside vanilla. You can see three different folders. You go to any one folder, you can see some Java classes there. User.java is one class, right? This is how you create a class in Java. Public class user. So basically the name of the class is user, and these are the different functions that you are going to write inside the class. So this is not something that you need to bother for now. Actually, it is nothing but get name for this is a function which would actually get the name from the browser. From the browser you can enter the name. It would be assigned to the variable name. That's what the get function will do. So like that, you have different functions defined inside the user class. Like that, you have different classes here. Go inside a different folder, for example service, and over there you have a number of class: user service.java and user service imp.java. So like that, there are a number of classes inside this src folder. And there is one more folder called web content. That is where you can see the JSP files which I talked about. Go to web inf folder. It would contain some, there's a JSP folder over there. It contains a number of JSP files which are nothing but the web pages, the Java web pages that you see in the browser. And the lib folder is the one that contains the libraries. I told you the Java classes, when you write some function, probably those functions are not there but inbuilt in Java. It is available inside some custom libraries. So these libraries are located inside this particular folder lib. If you go inside lib, type ls, you can actually see a number of libraries. Right? These are different libraries which probably the programmers used while they created these classes. And then you can see some web.xml file which would contain some web configurations. So these are the main things your project would contain. Okay, so that's what it is. And you have a build.xml file. Actually, you don't need to create one. There's a build.xml file over there that you can simply use it. So I'm just going to take a look inside this build.xml file. You know the syntax. It start with a project. The project start here and it would end here. Project start here and it end here. And in between the project, you are defining a number of targets. One target is init, then compile, then war, then clean. So there are four targets. This target start here and here. This war target start and end here. So like that, you have actually four targets in place. Okay, and then you define your path. Your path is nothing but inside the lib folder you combined all the jar files, then you defined your path. That's what this path is. And this path you are going to use when you want to do the compilation. Of course, I told you, when you compile the Java class or when you build it, these libraries are actually being used. So whenever inside the compile job or the build job, you are going to use this uh, path that you defined earlier. So let us take a deep in this. So what is path? Path is nothing but inside this folder, inside web content web inf, there is a lib folder. Inside that lib folder there are a number of jar executable files, which is nothing but the libraries which a developer would have used when they wrote the program. So combining all those libraries or the jar files, you are defining a path called compiled class path that you are going to use later. This path you are actually going to use later on. Fine. So then you have a target called init. What does the init target would do? Mkdir. Mkdir is nothing but create folder. This init target, if you run execute it, it would create two folders, a build folder and a classes folder inside that. Then it would create a dist folder. So these are the folders the init target would create. If you run the init target, then it would create these folders. That's what init target would do. The next one is compile target, which would compile the Java classes. And I told you when you want to compile the Java classes, you need the path, the executable library files need to be put together when you want to do the compilation. And there's a tool in Java which is called Java C. And Java C, you can run it from the Linux shell also. Java C is a program using which you can do the Java class compilation. Java C is nothing but Java compiler. So you want to use this tool Java C. It start here, it end here. So the compile action is what going to take place. The destination folder is this. So basically, after compiling the classes, the compiled classes would be stored inside this particular folder, build slash classes. And as you can see, build.classes was a folder that was actually created by the init target. So actually, you mentioned compile to be dependent on init. So if you want to run compile, first init should run. That's what it means. Depends init. So if you put inside any target, if you mention this depends, what it means is this particular target compile depends on init. Init is a target that you define here, which is nothing but it would create these folders. So you know the reason for dependency, because once the classes are compiled, this particular target is going to save the compiled classes into this folder. So the folder should be existing. So first you run the init target followed by compile, then only the Java classes would be compiled and stored inside this particular folder. So that is why depends is a important parameter that you can put inside, and that would make one target depend on another. So debug equal to true, src folder. So in which folder the Java plain text Java class are located that you mentioned here, and you are also mentioning the class path, right? The place where the libraries can be found is what the class path is. Compile.class path is something that you define here, including all the library files inside this lib folder. So once this target is run, the Java source classes would be compiled, and they would be the compiled class is going to be saved inside this particular folder. So once you did the compilation, it is time to do the building, right? For building, you need the files inside the web content folder, those JSP files and everything which I talked about. Then you need the Java classes, of course, where the classes are saved. The compiled classes are saved inside build.classes. Then you need to mention the lib directory, where exactly the libraries are located. Again, you need to mention the exact path to the lib directory. Okay. So putting all together, var is another Java tool that you can use to create a web application archive or var file in Java. So like I said, if it is a Java web application your developers are developing, first it need to be built into a web application archive, and that is the file which Tomcat can deploy, and it can run the Java application inside it. So var is a tool that you can use to do this deployment. So you need to mention where you want the var file to be saved. Once the var file is created, it would be located inside the dist folder and example.var. Then you need to mention the location of the web XML file, and again this is not something that you need to be bothered about. It is something, some config. Give me 1 second. Okay, this once it is run, it would create the war file and it would be placed inside this particular folder dist. And this is the web application archive that Tomcat can deploy. Got it? So finally, you have one more target. What this target does is it is deleting the folders. Delete, dist, and build. So basically, nothing but whatever folder got created, you are deleting them. Basically, you are cleaning up everything. Whatever your and have created, you are deleting them everything. The compiled classes are inside the build folder. The var file is inside dist folder. So you are deleting both folders from the hierarchy so that you get back the actual source code alone. So I'm going to save this particular file and I am going to execute the ant command. So as you can see, I mentioned var to be the default target. So if I simply run ant, it would execute var. And as you can see, var depends on compile and compile depends on init. So if I run var target, first it will run init target, followed by compile, followed by var. This is the series of execution that will take place. Right? It would start from init, followed by compile, followed by var. This is how the execution will take place. So once all these are executed, I can find my var file inside dist folder. So let us go ahead and do that. I can simply run and because the default target is var. And var depends on compile, compile depends on init. So all three targets would be executed except clean. So let us go ahead and do that. And simply run the command and you can see first init target is run, which in fact created these folders. Then compile target is run, which in fact compiled the classes and saved them inside your build folder. Then the var target was run, which in fact created the var file. So this is the var file that you have got inside your dist folder. So type ls command, you can see the dist folder. Inside dist you have the var file and example.var, and this is a web application archive that you can directly deploy into Tomcat. So what I would do now is I will download Tomcat. I will deploy this var file inside. Give me 1 second. Okay, so what I am going to do now is I'll go ahead and download Tomcat, install Tomcat, and this var file that I have created, I will deploy that into Tomcat. So how I will install Tomcat? I can simply download it and start it, right? That's all. I already installed Java. So only thing I need to do is I can go ahead, download Tomcat and start it. So let us go ahead and download Tomcat. So go inside bin folder, then start, run the command startup.sh, which would in fact start Tomcat. Tomcat is started. Now you browse for Tomcat URL. It is IP address colon 8080. First, I have to open the port 8080 in the firewall. Then I can browse for the URL. IP address colon 8080. I can see the Tomcat page. Now what I'm going to do is I want to deploy this my var file into the webapps folder. You know, right? It is inside the webapps folder. Your Java applications are located. There are a number of sample applications. So to this list of sample application, I am also going to copy my var file. Where is it located? It is inside slash root dist folder, not dist, inside and example dist folder, then the and example.var. This file I am going to copy into the webapps folder of Tomcat. So just copy it and Tomcat will automatically find it and deploy it. All you need to do is simply copy your var file into the webapps folder of Tomcat. That's it. It is deployed and you can see a new folder got created as it is deployed. So now you go ahead and execute, browse the URL, the Tomcat URL slash and example. You can actually see the web application, which is nothing but some form and all. So yeah, you got the web application printed in your browser. So basically, all developers can do. They want to make some modification. Maybe they want to add a new box into the website, or they need to remove one of these things. All they can do, go ahead, do the coding. They want to make some change in the class. Go ahead and make the changes in the class. Then they can simply run the command and it would automatically create the var file. Then at the end, if you want to automate it further, let's say you want to automate it further by adding a copy operations. At the end, you want to put a copy directive, which would actually copy this var file into the webapps folder of Tomcat. That's also something you can do. So basically, what developers can actually do is they can simply make change in the source code, run the command, and then automatically the source code would be deployed into your Tomcat at one shot. So developer does not need to focus on doing the code compilation and uh, resolving the dependencies and fixing these things. Nothing. They can simply execute the command and then they can immediately check their changes in their browser. So that is the advantage with Ant, and we can even automate it further. Actually, this is just the build job that we are doing, and we can automate the build job even further by using some continuous integration tools that we are going to discuss starting from tomorrow. One of the most important topic in our training, Jenkins, is what we are going to start tomorrow, right? And you have a project. I hope you all completed the chef project. Anybody yet to complete chef project? I'm not getting your emails, right? If you completed, or even if you are not completed, just send me your status how much you completed and what is pending, or if you are stuck with something, right? Write me an email so that I can come to know where you are up to, right? And your next project will start from tomorrow. Jenkins, and these Git and are different tools that we are going to use inside Jenkins to do our build job, and then some shell scripting you might need to use. So yeah, so our new project would start from tomorrow.
Basil, Jet last video was missing from the Google Drive.
I did not upload, is it? I'll upload it now.
Okay. And can you also please try to upload this one also today?
Yeah, let me start converting.